What the hell is that?
I ain't gonna lie. When I saw this one, I laughed so hard I involuntarily closed one eye and re-injured my neck. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 2003, and this is the year-end wrap-up show for the Brushfire Mind. We're done for the year. This is the last one. You got us for the next 57 minutes or until we're tired of bloviating. And we're just gonna do a little wrap-up tonight. We're gonna talk about border walls. We're going to talk about madness. We're going to talk about, we might just talk about the crazy guy in the vape shop and the GameStop gags. But let's just kind of, yeah, we're gonna hit some of the highlights and some of the lowlights. And well, it's 2018, so there were a lot of lowlights. We might even talk a little bit about worst journalist of the year, Don Lemon, worst journalist of the year, and how I discovered John Ward and the brilliance of him. How about you, Steve? Why don't you kick us off with some of your highlights and lowlights? Because you had a pretty major one.
A highlight or lowlight?
Fair argument.
No, I had a great year this year. First and foremost, out of all of it, I managed to find someone that put up with me, married like under contract and everything else, for 20 years. As of a few days ago, we passed our 20th year anniversary. So props to the missus for finding ways to deal with my crap for that long. I can't say we had a few lowlights. Everybody has, you know, the family members that move along and whatnot. We've had a couple of those this year, but all in all, it's been another good year. Can't really complain. The oldest daughter's cruising through college pretty well. The younger two are dealing with middle school and high school pretty well. They both transitioned into those this year, so they stepped up. Outside of that, I tried to take a bit of a step back from things for the year, which I did. I was with you a little bit, but for the most part, I backed off of politics on Facebook. I backed off of it on here. Kind of left a little bit of room from all the stuff that was going on because I was just overloading. But I don't know. Hopefully with the new year coming, well, I think hopefully as it comes through, I'll have more to offer. It can be a bigger part of the channel upcoming.
All right. How about you, Cameron? What's the year been like for you?
I would say that this is the year where let's see. I mean, I hate to jump straight to it and make supercharged political statements right off the bat, but this is the year where I was really humbled because I doubted a lot about Donald Trump. And even here at the end of the year, I thought he was going to cave. And it's whether or not you even agree with the border wall, it was going to be an utter failure for him to cave. And then he didn't. And he's done this whole head fake move all year long. And all of us should have seen it coming. And, you know, a lot of us didn't, myself included. So I would say that year 2018 was actually really humbling for me in a lot of ways, not the least among them, because I had to re-examine what I was looking for in a politician.
It's a good point you make. As far as the head fakes, this year revealed a lot in the way his game plans run. With the don't pay attention to what he's saying, especially on Twitter, watch what he's doing. That was a lot more telling than just the knee-jerk reactions everyone was having. Maybe we should call 2018 the year of the re. But
yes. Oh, so much. Hey, have you guys seen the thing where the vape shop employee here in right here in Tucker, Georgia, he just loses it, and then toward the end of the video, when the guy deliberately triggers him again, and it's like, oh man, I'm so glad this capitalist system has overcome, and the guy loses it all over again. Oh,
yeah,
it was
too easy.
Yeah, 2018, definitely the year of the re. Like, oh no, let me show you Pepe.
Video on that. Have y'all seen the follow-up video? The MAGA hat guy went back to the vape shop. Have y'all seen that?
I saw where he went to another vape shop and got decent service.
No, he went back. Oh, I guess that too. But no, he went back to the vape shop where the incident occurred. They fired the jackass that ran his mouth. It's a black woman that owns the place. So now there's a video, and it's the MAGA hat guy in there with the black female store owner, and he's saying, "Y'all, please, please, this shop didn't do anything wrong to me. It was the one asshole, and he's gone. These people got bills and families and kids they got to pay. They got to take care of. They got to pay their bills."
So the guy's being super classy about it.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Super classy.
Good for him.
Yeah, so he went back and made a video endorsing the vape shop, and the owner even made it a point to say, "And we are giving his wife a big bottle of juice for free, by the way."
But no, not that we digressed or anything, but just to kind of bring back to that point. As far as giving it time, because I know Cam wasn't a Trump fan when all this stuff started. I still can't say I'm a big fan myself, but this year has been telling in his MO a little bit. It's brought more things to light that he's got a game plan. He's got an approach to how he does things, which he did say up front, but nobody was listening. So I still can't say that all of his policies, all the things he's doing are my favorite things on earth, but there are a few good things that he's done that I can say that I'm proud of him for.
I don't like everything that he does, but I actually feel, I guess I would say, a sense of calm about the types of decisions that he makes, even when I disagree with him, because he is unapologetically taking an America first strategy. So even if he errs, if he's erring on the side of America first, I can live with that. As opposed to the previous president that was, I mean, basically a Marxist, whether or not anybody wants to admit it. So it's so refreshing. I can't help but look at it, and I've said this to Chris many times. You know, if Rand Paul or Ted Cruz were president, and they had roughly the same presidency, we would be telling everybody, this is what happens when you follow right-wing principles and you get the federal government the hell out of the way, and you actually create a true level playing field. Because the more the federal government's involved in it, the more unlevel the playing field actually is. And Trump was smart enough to recognize that also applies on a global level. The more beholden we are to artificial contracts, like the Paris Climate Accord, that was the first time my brain ever really blew up over Trump, because I understood exactly what he was doing so perfectly. Because I don't know if you remember, but he even capped that whole thing off with saying, hey, you know, but climate change is a serious threat. And of course, we all need less pollution. So if you can just make another Paris Climate Accord, but one that doesn't completely screw America over, hey, I'll sign it. I'll get us right back into this. America will even be the leader and do more cuts than anybody else, but it can't be this uneven because it's just too uneven. And of course, they never brought in another Paris Climate Accord.
A word. They talked about how bad it was, but they gave no alternatives, as usual. The one thing that I will say I strongly disagree with Trump on, and it's not even the item specifically, it's the precedent it sets in the banning of bump stocks by executive decree.
Yeah, that's the only place I've got a real quibble with the Donald so far, and that was actually going to be my next question. I was going to ask what specific policy positions do you disagree with? Because we can bitch about his personality or whether he's rude or this, that, and the other thing, but on policy, I like the Donald. I'm pretty good with basically everything except for the bump stock thing.
Well, still waiting to see the rest of his tariffs are a good thing work out. it's becoming more costly as we go on for domestic companies, and I haven't seen the breakover that it was supposed to bring yet, which is pretty disappointing.
Oh no, the tariff thing's that's already yielding serious positive
It's
results.
yielding massive steel costs. It's not 100% good thing, brother.
Okay, it's not 100% good thing. Okay, but this is okay. I think this is one of the things where Trump is playing the long game. I think Trump recognizes that what he's doing does abuse the economy a little bit, but the American economy can take the abuse in a way that no other economy in the world can. Ronald Reagan played the same game with the Soviet Union in the 80s. He ramped up our military spending because he knew that the Soviet Union would also ramp up its military spending, and then they would collapse because, they're communist. So I think what Trump is doing here is playing bumper cars, and we're the biggest damn bumper car. And in a lot of ways, I don't agree with it. Like, wait, you want to impose a tax, any tax, a new tax on top of the other taxes that we already have? Philosophically, I agree. 9 times out of 10, we don't need to tax something. But there is the rare instance where it is sort of the necessary theft of taxation, where you fund some higher priority. And I happen to think that this is one of those situations, because I hate the idea of tariffs, but not even China can keep up with us forever playing this game. They just can't. It's just a fact.
No, and agreed that they can't. But what happened at the end of all the spending that Reagan did that got the Russians put so far behind? Insurmountable debt. We've added another, I've seen numbers from 1.3 to 1.7 trillion added again to an already.
Tariffs aren't spending, though.
Well, no, I'm not trying to connect that. What I'm saying is, even with the tariffs trying to win trade wars, it's increasing the debt that we're having to have because it has not broken over yet. It's also killing small business and killing part of the tax base.
I would argue that our debt to China has already increased and increased and increased and increased. And
this isn't the way you talked when Obama did it.
Okay.
Obama, no. The comparison to what Obama did, Obama didn't do this. Obama didn't do any of this. Obama did extraordinarily large spending programs, tax increases, and I keep seeing all this crap, all this, and this is just bullshit. This is talking straight out of somebody's ass. All this bullshit about, oh, well, y'all aren't aggravated about Trump increasing the debt by $1.7 trillion.
I've seen between 1.3 and 1.7.
Okay, 1.3 and 1.7. Obama increased the national debt over the course of 8 years by more than $10 trillion.
Yes, so Trump hasn't been in office 8 years yet. That 1.7 is just this last fiscal year.
Okay, and for every complaint that Obama set this up, Obama set that up, all the good things that have happened are because of Obama, how does not the motion of the debt follow along with that? And additionally, not only did Obama double the debt during his 8 years, and yes, you're right, Trump has not been in office for 8 years yet. He's only been in office for almost 2, but the Barrio doubled the debt, which means he also, and actually more than, doubled the amount of interest that we have to service on that debt. So to lay the increase of $1.5 trillion exclusively at Trump's feet is completely disingenuous, especially considering the amount that the Obamacare cost of coverage has increased since Trump took office in the wake of an absolutely feckless and spineless Republican elected body at the House and Senate.
Chris, can I tag on that Republican body? Because as I was sitting there and I was listening, actually, I could say that objectively speaking, this is a real difference between Trump and Obama. Obama basically had a pliant Congress that did what he wanted, and Trump had a hostile Congress that looked for the tiniest excuse to bog down the process. And I feel like it's really important to point out that it was actually the House Freedom Caucus, the most conservative / libertarian / Tea Party, whatever, right-wing faction of the House. They were the guys that figured out a compromise bill to try and get it through the Senate, to try and get it through the House. And, Paul Ryan ended up pulling it because, it wasn't going to pass. So to compare the fiscal problems that Trump has to deal with to what Obama had to deal with, I mean, Obamacare in a lot of ways is the X factor because the federal government is still subsidizing all of these medical costs. It is at least part of the reason why the spending has exploded. So I get where you're coming from when you criticize me for saying that I had a problem with Obama raising certain taxes. And yes, I did have a problem with Obama raising certain taxes. I thought creating a new category of taxes on healthcare itself with the Congress behind you was a terrible mistake, But tariffs are one of the oldest forms of taxation in existence. They're referred to in the Constitution itself. So while fundamentally I don't agree with any new tax, I do at least recognize that there's a real precedent here. And maybe the tariffs in some ways in a secondary fashion have contributed to our debt. But a direct consequence, no, I would have to disagree.
Well, and I wasn't trying to tie the tariffs directly to it, but you're talking just as part of the bucket with the tariffs being an effective tax. He's also, and everyone knows, he's cut taxes so far. He has not cut spending.
How much spending can he cut? We have a Republican president and a Republican House and a Republican Senate, and we can't even get $5 billion appropriated for a wall for something that. No, but the point that I'm trying to make is this is something that should happen. This is one of the main reasons why Trump and Republicans were elected at every level, because border security is something that we worry about. And compared to the massive amounts of bullshit we already spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on, we can't get this one relatively tiny thing. So if I look at that and then I compare it to the thought of actually spending less money. I forget who it was, but there was a congressman that came up with something called the penny plan, where you literally just took 1 penny out of everything over a 10-year period. And at the end of the 10-year period, it was all balanced. I could get behind something like that, but the Congress won't. And I'll tell you, Steve, and maybe this is just a giant projection, but I would bet that Trump could get behind something like that. If the Congress could actually give him a plan that, in 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, whatever, would actually completely balance the budget, knock down a huge chunk of our debt and all that good stuff, I think Trump would be on board in a heartbeat. So, I mean, again, I understand the comparison, how he does do some things the same way Obama did them. I realize that, but at the same time, he's not inventing law as he's going along. Slapping a tariff on a country has been something that we've done as a negotiating tactic since day one.
Well, and that's why I said even when the tariff first enacted, I was on the show for within a couple weeks at that point. when the tariffs passed. And I said it then, and I'll say, you know, looking back on it now, I said I hope it happens as fast as it needs to, because that's not something sustainable. And it's right now it's been dragging on. Whoa, that's a beer I hadn't seen it around in a while.
I had to stop at some sketchy gas station on the way home.
Sorry for the off the rails bit there, Cameron. Curveball with that can. God, I haven't drank that in 20 some years.
No.
It's probably still the same batch.
I didn't even see what it was. What's going on?
Say again?
I didn't even see what it was. You got some apps going on?
Steve's making fun of my shitty beer. Steve's making fun of my 2 for $3 Bud Ice that I got from the gas station on the way home.
Man, but when I was
I've been drinking it out of the Nirvana cup the entire time we've been talking. Like that.
Here, let me just. I'll just do this to help you out a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Between the two of us, that should
bring
equalize.
Here you go. I'll help.
No, man, are you kidding? I hate that stuff. I think it's so overrated.
I really can't talk to you no more.
It's overrated. You know, it tastes like every other Indian pale ale ever.
Okay, yeah, you talk about me not understanding what I'm talking about. No, that's as we'll do this as a throwback. This wasn't supposed to be a serious show tonight, anyhow. Not to derail that, but Bud Ice was what I drank when I first right before I moved to Georgia, back when I was just barely old enough to drink, because that was, especially in my neck of Pennsylvania, the first high octane beer really available. Because it was a 5.5% alcohol, and nothing up there was that strong at the time, so it's that to get us drunk. God, I haven't had that beer in forever. You quit toasting me with a Nirvana cup. The second most overrated band in history, right behind Led Zeppelin.
No, most overrated band in history. You want real blasphemy? The Beatles.
I don't think so. They never pretended.
John Lennon said that the Beatles were bigger than Jesus Christ.
No, that was George Harrison. And at the time, they were more popular, other than Catholics.
If you have to say other than, then you're not more popular than.
Well, yeah, but half of the known world when they said that didn't know who they were yet. And they did know who Jesus was, so that didn't count. Actually, a lot of the world...
I feel like you're arguing my point. But... No, look, the Beatles have a few good songs that I really enjoy, but I've actually sat down and listened to Beatle albums, and like half the songs, I'm like, well, I don't think I ever want to listen to that again.
No, I'm not a massive Beatles fan, but I don't think they've been overrated. I think they earned where they were. But Zeppelin made most of their money off blues covers. That's not cutting edge to me. Once or twice, maybe once each album, yeah. But nah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what just happened to this show.
I'm just trying to go back to lighthearted. We weren't supposed to get into a massive argument on this show.
And yet
it happened. But no, we'll see as far as the rest of the policies and stuff go. Not real fond of where we still are with the money thing. Really not fond of the de facto gun control decree, because that's still not law. That was purely from his desk. And the Gun Owners of America, GOA, which is an alternative to the NRA as a national movement now, is filing a lawsuit about it. So we'll see where that goes.
Honestly, look, as far as the bump stock thing goes, like that sucks. It is, I mean, shall not be infringed. And I realize that makes me a stupid right-winger for thinking that that's an all-inclusive statement. But it's an all-inclusive flippity-flipping statement.
Shall not is pretty strong. If it says shall not in the National Electrical Code, the electricians cannot do it.
Yes, you know, there's something similar in the pest control that I do. The label is the law, and there's always a section in the label that says you shall not apply near blah, 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 blah. And they're serious. You don't put it near bird baths and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the catch. And it's like I said, I'd have no urge to own a bump stock. They do nothing but help you make it easier to increase a rate of fire. Because your finger,
I mean, yeah, if you're rich and you want to piss away bullets,
oh, that's a good point. Yeah. But my thing is, even if you can dump them fast, you can't dump them accurately with that. It is not the same as full auto by any means. Full auto, it's a stable weapon. With one of those stocks, the weapon is moving in your hands. Cameron froze again. But anyway, and he froze taking over the screen for me, so hopefully I've taken it over from him, and you're not just looking a goofy look on his face.
Yeah, I can take it back from him. So I'm just going to go ahead and boot Cameron out, and I'll send him a fresh invite and bring him back in.
Yeah. The main thing being, the bump stock was developed out of where people found they could do something like hooking a finger in a belt loop and pulling the rifle forward and letting it, it's hip fire, which is even less accurate, but they could get the whole make me laugh like an 8-year-old with a fart joke kind of fun at the range or something like that. But it's nowhere near practical. It's nowhere near what everyone thinks this bump stock is. But now that has come into you can get bump stocks, but you don't need them. Now, the next argument will be, well, you can get them, but you don't need 30-round magazines. You can get them, but you don't need flashlight mounts because they look tactical. It opens a very bad door for a lot of things, and it should have been left alone.
I agree 100%. I am a firm believer that no gun law is constitutional.
That's absolutely correct. And I'm absolutist about a lot of things, but most all of them come from the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I am absolutist about the things that you can found a nation on that are not allowed to be halfway there. Well, brother, I'm not used to you being this quiet. I'm not used to running a show. It's been a long time.
Well, the two of you just kind of took off with it for a minute there, and I think I lost my thread. Oh no, we have two Camerons.
Were you not entertained?
I was indeed.
What do we have? Do we have two Camerons for real?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on with that?
That's okay.
Well,
so I'm going to boot one of them out.
It totally crashed on my end. So
yeah, you froze up with a kind of silly look on your face. You'll have to watch it.
Yeah, great. I can't wait to.
Oh, it doesn't look that bad. You just look quizzical, let's say.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. It's not the thumbnails that my head winds up on when Chris doesn't put in a splash screen. So, incidentally, let's move on to some other happenings this year. The back end of this year, my middle child, my people that know me know the kids I have. I've got 3 girls. They're all teenagery, and 1 adult. My middle daughter had expressed interest with my wife, wondering if I would take her to the range one day when I went, because she was interested to learn how to shoot more.
I already love where this story's going.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because several years ago when they were still new, I bought one of the Ruger 1022 takedown rifles. And for fun, I took it up north with me when we went up around Christmas time for a family visit up to Pennsylvania where I grew up, and went to go shoot. Figured I'd, because at my mom and stepdad's place, you could shoot outside. There's enough property and nobody's around. I grew up shooting constantly. That's what I did as a hobby. And so I dragged the 22 out, figure I'm going to teach the girls how to shoot. My oldest one doesn't really have an interest, but the younger 2 were kind of into it. So I take them outside with this little semi-auto 22, going to have some fun with it. And I start to explain a sight picture to them. They said, "We already know, Dad. They taught us how to shoot at the Y." We had them in a day camp program for summer with the YMCA in our county here.
The YMCA?
Yes, sir.
Taught them how to shoot a gun for
Dude,
real?
I love my county. I'm telling you. So they did a bunch of swimming and a bunch of other outdoorsy stuff at this day camp. That's, it's an offsite. It's not at a Y. It's an offsite camp kind of thing for a couple years back to back. And one year they had a BB gun shooting range, and they taught them firearm safety and how to shoot properly and stuff like that with rifles. We had no idea. I'm okay with it. I didn't have to sign a permission slip. None of that stuff came home. They just went ahead and did it. Perfectly cool with that. So we get them on the 22 rifle, and of course they're shooting. They've already learned. They know they're not crack marksmen by any means, but they're having fun and they're safe with it. I liked it. So neither one of them has expressed interest again until my wife tells me that my middle one has expressed an interest in going. And the time came up, I bought myself a new pistol for Christmas, and was going to go to the range to start to break in it a little bit, and decided I would just preempt her asking and asked her if she wanted to go with me. So we go, and I take my little single action 22 revolver, got the loading gate and the ejection rod and everything, just like an old Colt single action Army kind of thing. But just 22 long rifle shells out of a full steel revolver. There's not a whole lot of kick there. It mostly just makes noise. And I took probably 200 and some rounds for it, whatever was left in the box I had. And as I put 200 rounds through my LCP, my 15-year-old put almost 200 rounds through my new model single six as well.
Damn, son.
Yeah. So if I can, let me steal this for just a minute.
Go for it.
There we go. That was her first target at 15 feet. First time she'd ever had her hand on the pistol. So can you see the mouse?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Shoot it in the face.
Yeah. They're just heavily in the face. Yes, indeed. We did bring home, hold on. I got to take off the screen share. Okay, did I cancel it out? I can't really tell from my end, but
yeah, you're clear.
Okay. We did shoot up. There were 2 of those targets. They had like 5 or 6 different moles like that on each one as the bullseyes. Just made it a little cartoony to shoot. Nothing big. When I go, I tend to shoot groups on several targets, so I always get something with multi bullseyes, not silhouettes. I know I can hit center mass. I don't need those. I need a little more bullseye challenge. So we started with that, and she even got herself shooting 2-round drills by the end of it, where she'd two at this one, 2 at that one, 2 at this one, with a friggin' single action 22 revolver. I thought that was beautiful. Did I just freeze the whole? Okay, you're moving now. Okay, you were.
Yeah, you're good.
It started to scare me.
To you.
No, and that does sound beautiful. Not exactly the same thing, but my daughter, like I hunt with a compound bow sometimes, and I'm no amazing shot. Like a compound bow basically gives you a peep sight. Like if you can't figure out how to shoot one, and I pull it out and I'm shooting with my daughter, and she looks at my trigger and she looks at my wrist guard and all the other stuff, and she's like, "You're a cheater. We're not even allowed to use this in competition." And she just like, with her fingers and everything, like knocks the arrow all the way up to her cheek and just thunk.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I mean, in front of like family members too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I'll take it. That was pretty badass right there.
On. That's it. Build her up, and that helped. Yeah.
All of my kids, except for my youngest one, have shot an actual gun. It's something I try and do with them actually pretty early. Go ahead and get the mystery out.
Right.
And
that's it. Start answering the questions early. Make it so they're not afraid to ask. Then the mystique is gone, and they don't want to sneak around to do it.
Yes. My 6-year-old is actually allowed to come up to me and say, "Hey, can I see your pistol?" And I take the bullets out, and we talk about what the gun safety rules are. And the 3 rules are: this is your safety. You never pointed at anything, and you pretend like every gun is always loaded, even if you just took the bullets out of it.
You forgot be sure of your target and what's behind it. But
that's why you don't point it at anything. That's I'm dealing with a 6-year-old. Okay, I'm trying.
It's only 4 rules. It's not that many more. Sorry, I'm partial instructor. It's in my blood. I'm sorry.
You really think I should be incorporating a 4th rule? Really?
Colonel Jeff Cooper, man, he's the one that developed it. Those are the only 4 you need ever.
See, I was taught the 3 that I teach my kids, and I've never accidentally shot anybody.
but you also have to be sure of your target and what's behind it, and that goes for targets or people.
Okay, fair point. I get. Give me something to think about here, Steve. Thanks.
They're good. Just expand on it. That's all I'm saying. Just don't change it. Just expand on it. Yeah. But no,
fair enough.
And you've got enough property out that way, Cam. You can take your kids to shoot pretty much at leisure, can't you?
Yeah, I do have a pistol range set up at my mother-in-law's house with 10, 20, 30, and 50 yards marked off.
Nice.
Yep. Shoot into an embankment and everything. Like, it's about as safe gets.
Yep. That's the way it needs to be. We are in a rather tight packed subdivision, no extra ground, anything to do that. So I'm at the mercy of going to existing ranges. But once the kids are grown and gone and we get out of here into, as Christy calls it, our forever house, once we're out that way, it's going to be on enough ground where I can do that. I want something that goes out to at least a couple hundred yards.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see, it's 8:40. Chris, just so you know, I do have a white hats, and it is a DRT.
Incidentally, if I could just, because we've got so much time before like our self-imposed end of the show, if we stick with 9 o'clock. One of the great little efforts across Facebook that I've seen, I know you guys personally, being friends on Facebook, have seen what I've shared from the pho, like the Vietnamese soup pho on Facebook, has been sharing a gun defense shooting post a day all year long. She didn't start it right at January 1st. She started it in the spring, so she's still got time before she does 365 straight, but she hasn't missed a day yet.
And who is that?
The philosopher, PHLOSPHER.
The philosopher.
I'm sure her heritage, but she's an Asian woman, just an absolute blast.
No, there's no way you accidentally make that joke.
Oh no, she's even gotten it written in the writing on the to-go food boxes from Chinese places. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the Japanese guy with the Jewish wife that opened the teriyaki joint, or the teriyaki sauce company called Soy Vey.
But oops.
Okay, so real quick,
it's a thing.
I'm not arguing, but it's still a fish.
Okay, so real quick before we get to the white hats, can I throw up 2 more things that happened this year? Okay, all right. One is super serious and one is total popcorn. However, I both think they're incredibly unique because I think we might have seen the complete evolution of something. The first one is honestly Infinity War. Thanos' snap. I mean, the bad guy won, and we loved it. I cheered. It was amazing. It delivered. I could not believe that Disney made this movie. And I'll just point out something that Chris and I have discussed before.
I have not been so pleasantly surprised by a Disney movie since Pulp Fiction.
Wait, what?
Blink?
Miramax. Saw as a Disney movie.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay. But 2 things about that. I don't know that we'll ever be so pleasantly surprised by a comic book movie ever again. Just that they had the balls to do it and make it look good and feel good. And not just good, but authentic. Like, whoops, maybe Thor shouldn't have tried to sneak in one more one-liner, and he should have just hit Thanos in the head. Maybe that should have happened.
I can't seem to get to the meme now, but you're talking simply about Infinity War. My favorite Christmas meme this year was Thanos with the glove on, standing over one of the elf on a shelf things, but
it's peppermint candy.
Peppermint candy chrome. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I could find it, but I can't find that one that quick in Google.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. However, just to kind of tie it back to who and what we are, it's funny because Infinity War is directed by the Russo brothers, and they directed Civil War, and they directed The Winter Soldier. And it's not a big leap to look at The Winter Soldier and look at it as a really stinging rebuke of the Obama administration's just drone them till they shut their freaking mouth policy.
Yeah.
And then it's
the Obama administration's massive expansion of the surveillance state.
Indeed.
Well, part of the point of the super drones was they would determine who a threat was, and they would take them out before they could be any more of a threat. And I couldn't help but think about Anwar al-Awlaki, who is a bad guy and a traitor, but he was also an American citizen, and Obama just freaking droned him to death. And that's worth noting.
Well, and then another plus that I'll give Trump, he got us out of wars. He didn't drone wedding parties.
Yes. The boys are coming out of the bedroom. Sorry. But then you move on to Civil War, which like just clubbed me over the head as a Second Amendment, like everything, like the whole thing where Captain America's like the safest hands are our own. And man, like 1,000 times out of 1,000, you want to talk about shall not be infringed. And the whole thing with the superhero registration, which I couldn't help but compare to the UN small firearms registration. And yeah, not trying to go too Alex Jones on it, but I felt like it was right there with the way it was all set up.
If you go back in our playlist, viewers, you can find an episode we did entirely on that.
And then we take it all the way to Infinity War, again directed by the Russo brothers, and Thanos is a statist. He's an eco-terrorist. He's like the ultimate Marxist. I mean, in a really cold-blooded sort of way. Well, if you just destroy half of all life, all plant life, all animal life, all sentient life, all life, 50% of it, just everything else will balance out in the void.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the other side of it. There's been arguments on this specific channel against eugenics as well.
The point that I'm trying to make, though, is forget the fact that he makes a really classic Marxist mistake. A capitalist would take the Infinity Gauntlet and say, why don't we just like double all the resources? And I don't know if we even want to be authoritarian about it. Why don't we just like slow down everybody's birth rate? Like you can only have one baby every 5 years or something like that. But no,
the power that's supposed to give you, that could have gone any one of a million preferable ways, honestly. And who's to say what anybody would call when they hold it? So I don't think it's an unreasonable storyline in that sense at all. I just think he didn't weigh any other options.
And that's the thing that a statist, an eco-terrorist does. Like it's a zero-sum game. There's only so many resources. Right. So, it's life that needs to pay the price for existing. And that's a really nihilistic view.
But it's also more right than left as well, just like the other movies. So it's interesting that the take that the Russo brothers bring to these movies.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder if they're not like secretly operating at some level at Disney that none of us even begin to understand, because I just don't understand how you can read these things in these movies and they still have jobs. Like they're directing Endgame, which, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and predict will not be as good as Infinity War. I think it will be good. I think it will be awesome. I think it will be a satisfying conclusion to the story, but I don't think anything is ever going to top that snap. I just don't. Maybe when the Joker pushes the guy's eye through the pencil, maybe that. maybe that, but
it's absolutely gorgeous. The one thing I will say that really surprised me in Infinity Wars is how much humanity they really wrote into Thanos. You really start to see something deeper in that guy than just another Marvel bad
guy. The only other one who was like him was Loki. Because Loki was a fully fleshed out character. There were things about him where you were sympathetic, finding out, after basically hundreds of years that you're adopted, all these other things. That would be pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at the DCU side for just a second,
why?
Cameron and I were talking about. We were talking about this the other day. There were how many? There were a dozen movies. There were a dozen Marvel MCU films between Iron Man and Captain America and all those. How many films were there before the first?
Okay, so the Ang Lee Hulk movie introduced the concept of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and then there was Iron Man, and then you got the Captain America, the Thor, and all that. And I want to say there was like 5 or 6 movies before it all shook out, before you got the Avengers. So you had the proper amount of build up. You're going to cross these people over.
But then the DCU, we got one Superman movie that kind of fits next to a not so great Batman versus Superman movie, where surprisingly, I really liked the way that Affleck pulled off Batman. But
yeah, it's probably the best thing about the movie.
I'm sorry, there's just no defense for that portrayal of Lex Luthor. It's just utterly indefensible. And then we're face first into freaking Justice League with just nothing. And
we had plenty. We had Suicide Squad.
And somehow Steppenwolf is just this completely forgettable, uninteresting, flat character.
Yeah, he's thousands of years old, and he's boring and stupid. And Thanos is a big giant purple testicle chin. And even though he's wrong, and he's a big giant dick, you at least understand why he's doing what he's doing. Steppenwolf wants to sort of conquer something. And I'll tell you, I actually think that subtle inclusion of an archetype we can recognize is actually part of why it was so easy to humanize Thanos. Because if you start with a terrorist, okay, how do we make somebody feel sympathy for a terrorist? How do we make somebody feel sympathy for an absolute authoritarian, statist, supreme left-wing, intellectual, all the things? If we could roll it together into one archetype, then what do we do to make you feel some sympathy for this character? And that's why they could do it with Thanos, and you can't do it with Steppenwolf, because Steppenwolf's a nothing. He's something for the heroes to revive Superman to go kick the shit out of, because whatever. But the point was, that was the that was actually the that was the lighthearted thing that I wanted to bring up that happened in 2018. That there will never be a comic book movie shock quite like that ever again. It'll be, and maybe it'll be topped. Okay, maybe.
It would have to be in a completely different vein. Anything. I mean, when you've done that massive kill off of a big part of your catalog, it's got to be something, a different tact altogether, not just a death. It's got to be some other changing event to have any kind of impact like that.
Yeah, and the fact that they had like 18 or 19 movies to legitimately build up to this point, to have something this jaw-dropping happen, like that, man, that's hard to argue with. It really is.
I can't say they could have done it any better than the way they did go about it.
I don't want to get I don't want to get spun off too far on it, but Disney tried to do the same thing with Star Wars and failed fucking miserably. But, oh, and I dropped the F-bomb. I tried not to. I get that angry over the Star Wars stuff. Oh,
I understand.
We're allowed to have a couple before we really get hammered, aren't
we? Anyhow, but the serious thing that happened in 2018 that I really want to point out is actually the whole Brett Kavanaugh situation. Yeah. Like, here's a guy that, boy, you want to talk about archetypes. You want to write a movie script about like the ideal path for a young man to take, who knew somewhere around 14, 15, 16 years old that he was going to get a law degree or a medical degree or a master's in engineering. Like, this was going to happen with Brett Kavanaugh. And he was going to go really far in whatever he was doing. And because he was replacing a seat on the Supreme Court that was, I don't want to exactly say liberal, but I'm going to use that word for the purposes of this argument.
I think that's fair enough.
Because he's replacing a liberal seat, suddenly it is fair game to question his character in a way that if my character or your character or anybody's character was questioned in that way, like I didn't keep calendars of my workout schedule when I was 17 years old. Like that, no, not even close. And but I never raped anybody either. I never tried to rape anybody. I never even came close to coming close to trying to rape anybody. But I have no way of trying to prove that. And the conflation between the legal system where you know, you're innocent until you're proven guilty, but Brett Kavanaugh doesn't have to necessarily face his accuser because this is just a job interview. That never rung true for me because, you know, you had to swear in before Congress before you give this testimony. And if he can't go to the Supreme Court because he's like a super perv, well, then he can't keep his job on the Ninth Circuit. That's because right. He's a super perv. Like,
that's important. He's already received an appointment.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, there you went. I actually wanted to talk about the popcorn thing very briefly and the Brett Kavanaugh thing extensively, but it sort of seemed to go the other way.
I'm willing to. That was a big part of this year, honestly. That was a massive thing where it was truly the court of public opinion that the left tried to force into being the manner under which we judge everything now, even in the face of that big a lack of evidence. And it's like I've said before, I hate the idea that any woman has endured something like that. I really do. But how can you possibly, if you don't do anything about it then, how can you expect anything to be done 30 or 40 years after the fact when all it is a word? We don't put people in prison that we can't prove did things. I hate to say it. I hate if it happened to her, and if it did, it did seem like something had, but I don't think it was Kavanaugh that did it.
You know, my wife said something really similar.
Why does it seem like something happened? Why does it seem like something happened to her?
Because she had certain parts of her story. There was some genuine pain she was getting across. But no matter how you go about it, slicing it, I can't say that it was the exact same thing with somebody else's name in that place. But the girl's been through some pain somewhere, and I'm not sure what. But I'm pretty sure Kavanaugh.
I would really have to, in some way, agree with Steve. I think, and from a purely subjective standpoint, as you listen to her, there is something, even if you don't believe the exact details of the story that she's telling some story somewhere under many layers of obfuscation. Like, why else would you be willing to do what she did unless you'd been fundamentally hurt somewhere else in your life, and in some nihilistic and malicious way, you saw this as a way to balance the scales.
Well, no, I believe people can be Democrats without having been injured in their past. That sort of malice doesn't seem to be only
if you even want to take it as simply tempering the fact that an accusation without evidence is nothing, not just taking it at face value, trying to read something into what she was saying at all. Like I said, I don't doubt that she was hurt somewhere, but I really don't think she directed it in the right way, and I think she was manipulated into being more to blame for what happened than she needed to be. We should be blaming more the people that put her in that position instead of actually trying to seek to find the root of the problem and helping the girl.
Okay.
Well, so the problem I have is this: we're saying, you guys are saying that she seems credible. That's basically what you're saying.
No, that's basically not what I'm saying.
Not direct accusation. Yeah. Somewhat.
No, hang on. Cameron said that's not what he's saying. Cameron, that's exactly what you're saying. Is that in the absolute absence of evidence, the way that she told her story makes you believe that there is something that happened, even if the story she's telling is not correct, or is
the way she's telling the story is a form of evidence. The number one way that people communicate with one another is through story, and you cannot ignore the fact that somebody might tell you a compelling story, even if there are narrative elements of it you disagree with.
But in the absolute absence, because it's not just that there's no it's not just that there's no evidence to place Kavanaugh in the situation. There's no evidence to attach the allegation to Kavanaugh personally.
Right.
There was never any evidence. Mm-hmm. There was never anything but her story.
Right.
Anything at all occurred ever.
Well, I'm not saying anything she's got's an admissible court of law testimony. What I'm saying is the girl seemed like somewhere along the line she had been genuinely hurt. And the stuff that all came out of this was something spun, kind of like it went beyond what she was after, and she ran with it, because who's to say she doesn't genuinely believe what party she was at, who it was, or how she got home, or how many people were there? I mean, you've seen enough drunk girls in your time. Folks lose track of shit. Do I think that somebody took advantage of her in a weak state? I think that's a reasonable thought. But is there anything she can prove that who did it this long after the fact? No. But trying to find the girl some help for something she went through is hardly trying to hang someone for something that can't be proven.
Chris, and I conceded on the front end before I said what I said, that it was entirely a subjective viewpoint based on the way she told her story. So, I mean, I would ask you, as you listen to her say certain things and you compare the way she sounds to the way other women who have been through some type of sexual trauma sound, is there nothing in it from a purely subjective standpoint that makes her sound in any way compelling?
Oh no, I didn't think her testimony was compelling at all.
Not her testimony. The emotional nuance that underlied it.
I understand.
Steve is saying that.
Stop.
Okay. All right. All right.
Answer your question.
Fair enough.
I don't think any part of her testimony, to include the emotions that she attempted to portray, were compelling. Her acting was poor, and she flipped from these large blubbering displays of emotional distress to these flippant, happy, bubbly, poppy, pretty pose princess body languages so quickly that at no point in the delivery of her testimony do I think she was anything but acting. I thought her testimony was so flagrant. I thought that her flippant maneuvering between emotions was in itself a flagrant indictment of the credibility of her testimony from the very ground up. Go back and watch it. When she thinks she's supposed to be upset, she poses her face down. She tries to fake a crying sound, but never sheds a tear. She's not convincing.
I think, and I'm not going to speak for Steve, just for myself, but I think a lot of that I actually agree with. There was a large part of this that was constructed, and it was constructed deliberately.
Agreed. And that's why I said the people that led her to what this was, I think, took it beyond what it probably should have been to actually do her any good.
I think, I do think in a lot of ways, even she was a malicious actor in this farce. Maybe. But I think the reason why, see, Steve and I even disagree. That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Well, that's it. You said it in the beginning, subjective. We all saw it in a little different light at different times. We didn't watch it together and talk it out. We've talked about it separately on this channel.
Yeah, if only we could do the libertarian debate again.
Dude, that was a great night.
Yeah, it was.
Too much fun. But the flip side of it being the idea that the court of public opinion was pushed as far as it was in order to block something like that, just simply to get to the end of an agenda, shouldn't be acceptable in any American's viewpoint. If you cannot prove what is wrong, we cannot ruin people. Another thing that came out, the whole Russia collusion thing with the fellow in Alabama, Roy Moore.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, what?
Dude's entire career, and it's now come out that there was a billionaire who paid to have the false flag launched that indicated Roy Moore. They simply slandered the dude's character to ruin his campaign. That is not acceptable.
Wow, now you're killing me because this is something you just taught me. I missed that one.
Chris is faster on the news report stuff than I am, but Roy Moore's campaign was derailed because of the massive claims of different forms of collusion and impropriety. But it came out almost 2 weeks ago, I think, and I can't remember the fellow's name. But there was a rather well-off fellow who paid to have a bunch of things developed that made it look like they had evidence of it.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to pull it up because we're 5 minutes over time. We still have a White Hats Matter to do, and we don't actually have any viewers right now.
Well, somebody will watch this eventually.
Oh yeah, eventually. But yeah, Cameron, that's one that's worth looking into, and we might end up talking about it a little more as we go forward, because of course we're not done hearing about Russia. But yeah, the fact of the matter is that the Democrats, at a bare minimum, it is now proved that the Democrats in Alabama set up a botnet as a false flag attack to make it look like there were Russian bots over promoting Roy Moore and overinflating his campaign on social media. So they actually artificially inflated his campaign with bots for the purpose of
just to sink him later.
That it was being done by Russian operatives as part of the whole Trump collusion thing. Right. And boom, nope, Democrats.
Wow.
What's the old line of?
Because at the end of the day, a Democrat, at the end of the day, their moral base begins with the presupposition that it is morally good to use force to cause action and to deprive property.
Yeah, that's true. Well, to be fair, there are an awful lot of Republicans that are all about eminent domain and asset seizure too. So both sides have some guilt in that, but it's not nearly so blatant as a means to an end like the Democrats pull.
That is correct. There are some Republicans that lean further left than others.
So
and I vote Republican because they fuck up slower.
I'll stay with my buddy Steve Green from Right Angle. I vote Libertarian when I can. I vote Republican when I have to, and I vote Democrat when I'm dead.
Okay, so Chris, you got a sounder for us?
Yeah, I haven't seen that splash screen in a while.
Yeah, dude.
I don't actually.
Oh, hot woman tales of death and destruction.
On them right now.
Oh, no sting, and I can't do a cut and paste jaw movement.
Dude, just rip it. Say the line. Heartwarming tales of death and destruction with as much like biscuits and gravy on it as you can put.
Come on.
Shee, buddy, here we go. Another heartwarming tale of death and destruction. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the White Hats Matter.
That was excellent. Okay, this White Hats Matter coming to us out of Milwaukee. It's courtesy of Fox 6 out of Milwaukee. 75-year-old man returning to his home near 12th and Finn on Wednesday evening, December 26th, was attacked by two would-be robbers and shot one after his mother handed him a gun. The man is in police custody. I just want to stop right there because this guy is 75 years old and his mom handed him a gun.
Freaking awesome. I missed that story altogether, dude. That's cool.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
that's my kind of family right there.
Are y'all ready? Because this gets better. Okay, it really does. I couldn't shoot it. I couldn't get my finger right. I handed it to him, and he shot it. Hazel Kendricks, the man's 95-year-old mother, told Fox 6 News on Thursday. Police can
shoot first.
Say what?
She was gonna shoot.
She was gonna shoot first, and because she's 90-something years old, her fingers wouldn't work right.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Police confirm around 5:30 p.m. Officers were called out to the area for reports of a shooting. Upon arrival, officers discovered a 32-year-old woman suffering from a serious gunshot wound. Life-saving efforts were performed by the Milwaukee Fire Department. However, the woman died at the scene. And hashtag DRT. It's not that I want anybody to die. I don't want people to die. I don't. I really don't. I don't want people to have the chaos of their life come up on them and swallow them and destroy them. However, once you have malevolent intent, once you're willing to rob a 75-year-old and a 95-year-old,
yeah, really.
I mean, if you end up with a 9mm hole in your chest and you die,
consider it a job hazard.
And not only that, but honestly, I want it to serve as an example, both in the positive and the negative. This is why you don't rob people. And this is why an armed society is a polite society. You know, every time we've ever done a White Hats Matter, we've always tried to emphasize either a hashtag DRT or a hashtag DOT, which is dead over there, which is almost as good as a dead right there. That's when they die at the hospital afterwards.
Criminals don't do it again.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line, because dead robbers don't rob anybody else. You know, Milo had this great line where he said that all fags should carry guns because fags that carry guns only get called fag once.
That's a little bit extremist, but I get the sentiment.
Yes, I got the sentiment. Yeah, I did. So, but yeah.
Oh, you can use a little nuance and not get offended at these kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes things are just a joke. And since we're talking about a gay man that married a black gay man,
but I mean, somehow homophobic and racist.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So anyhow, long story short, the White Hats Matter segment has existed and come back around because one of the things that the left likes to trot out is that a good guy with a gun has never stopped a crime or saved the day or anything like that. And all I do is just look at Reddit forums on gun control and gun crime and defensive gun use and blah, blah, blah. And every time we've ever run this segment, I've been able to find something that was less than a week old where a good guy with a gun, a concealed carry permit holder, something to that effect, actually stop a terrible crime from taking place. So to say that a good guy with a gun doesn't actually do any good is a false narrative, is in and of itself a false narrative. Good guys with a gun reliably stop crimes all the time. All the time.
All the time. When it comes to mass shootings, having an armed person on site, the average kill, I think, is around 12 when police respond. When there is an armed citizen present, it's more around 2.
At the Virginia Tech shooting, there was a Holocaust survivor that actually tried to block a doorway to give a few students a few extra seconds to get away. And I can't help but ask myself, I said, man, you know, if this guy had just had a freaking Glock, nothing fancy, you know, or just a 38 revolver, nothing fancy.
Anything.
Yeah, anything. A guy with the, not just the balls, but the understanding of the trade that he's going to make, where he's going to block this doorway and he's actually going to save a few students' lives by doing it. That's a guy I want to have a gun when the shit hits the fan. There's a guy that can make the right choice and it's going to follow all 4 rules of gun safety. You like that, Steve? I just brought it back.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Smooth draw, slow aim, city squeeze.
And remember, you should always carry a gun because they're a whole lot lighter than a cop.
I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
It's more important than my American Express, man. I don't leave home without it.
Amen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the wrap. This has been 2018, and we will see you in the new year.
Happy New Year, brothers.
Happy New Year
to you guys.
And I'm going to stop doing the whole fire pit sign-off thing for a while. I think I played it out.
Need to revamp the credits a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still live, so they're all hearing show planning.
Yeah.
Welcome
right.
to our